Hi everyone, it's Stephanie here, and today I have a video featuring some new products from Winnie Walter. I'm going to be creating a baby themed card, and I'm going to use this adorable little giraffe image from the new Big Hug stamp set. This stamp set's a lot of fun because it can be used for love themed or baby themed. You can kind of do anything with this one, and I decided to use the giraffes and make it a kind of a congratulations card for some parents to be. So I'm going to do some watercoloring with the giraffe images. So I'm stamping them onto a piece of watercolor cardstock, and I'm using VersaFine Onyx Black ink to do my stamping. This is a permanent ink that is not going to bleed or run when I add water to these images. You just want to make sure that you fully let your ink dry on your cardstock panel before you start to do any watercoloring. So I'm using the Misty tool so I can double stamp this so that I get a really nice clean image. Sometimes when you stamp on watercolor paper, the texture kind of prevents you from getting a nice solid stamped image. And using the Misty stamping tool just allows you to kind of do a double stamp and make sure that your images are crisp and fully on the cardstock panel when you're done. So now that I have them stamped, I'm good to go. I've let them dry. I'm going to go ahead and start my watercoloring. So I'm using my Sakura Koi Field Sketchbox watercolors. This is a newer to me watercolor set. I've only had it for about a month or two, and I've used it a few times, and I'm really enjoying it. I like the colors in it. I like the container it comes in. I like to be able to kind of mix the different colors on the palette that you can kind of remove and kind of position on any side of the palette. So it is a lot of fun, and the colors worked perfectly for the giraffe images, so I really enjoyed watercoloring with this paint set. So I started off with a round zero brush, and I'm going to use this to paint in their bodies, and I am eventually going to move on to a different brush. This just was a little bit too small for me, so I do use it to completely paint their bodies, but when I move on to their spots and stuff, I am going to go to a little bit of a larger brush. But to do the bodies, I'm just taking my color, and I didn't pre-wet the images. It's completely up to you if you want to add water to your images first and then kind of just drop the color onto the image and let the water kind of move it around on its own. I decided I wanted to kind of have a little bit more control and paint it with some really heavy pigmented color versus having a lot of water. So I don't have a lot of water mixed in with the paints. I have just enough to kind of get it moving. And then I'm going to completely paint both of these giraffes and kind of avoid the spots on them. I could have just painted right over the spots, really, because at the end I'm going to completely paint them with a really dark brown color, so you wouldn't have seen the different color underneath of it. But I really wanted to have the brown that I'm going to use right against the white, and I didn't want to have this kind of yellow color underneath. Now, to give the giraffes a little bit of definition, I did take some of the darker brown color and mixed it in with my yellow color that I was using. And I just got a kind of a medium shade, and I added it to the back areas of the giraffes just to give them a little bit of shading and texture and make them look a little bit more realistic. And then, like I mentioned earlier, I did switch to a larger brush, and now I'm using a very dark brown ink color, and I'm adding color to all of the little spots on the giraffes. I used the same color brown that I'm using here on their spots for the rest of the details on the giraffe. So I'm doing the hair on their necks there. I'm also doing the little things coming out of their head, which I'm not sure what those are. And then I'm also doing their feet. So I decided just to kind of keep it all the same and use the same brown color throughout. And then I'm adding a little bit of red to their ears, and I dropped a whole blob of it there at first, so I just used my paper towel to kind of soak that up, and then I added just a little bit of that red detail just to kind of give them some pink in their ears. And then to finish off the watercoloring, I am taking some gray colored watercolor and putting this underneath of the two giraffes just to give them some ground area to stand on, just so it doesn't look like they're kind of floating in the middle of nowhere. And I did want to quickly mention too, just because it's kind of hard to pick up on a video, is that I did let all of the areas completely dry before I moved on to the next area. So if you have a watercolor image that you're doing and you have two different colors and two different areas that touch each other, you want to make sure that you let the first area dry completely before moving on to the next, or your colors will bleed together. So once I had that, my main panel done, I stamped a little heart from the bottom of my heart stamp set, and I colored that one in with some red watercolor. And I'm just going to cut that out in a little bit here and add it to the finished card design. So I trimmed down my finished panel so that it was slightly smaller than my gray card base, and I'm adhering it directly to the card base with some adhesive. And then once I have that done, I can go ahead and stamp my sentiment onto the panel. So I'm going to be using the Big, the Bold, and the Baby sentiment stamp set. And I just picked out a stamp that I wanted to use underneath of the giraffes. I didn't want anything large. I just wanted just a very simple font sentiment on this card because I want the focus to stay on the giraffes. So I just put bun in the oven on the front, and then I put congrats on the inside. I think it would be a really cute card to give to a new mom or new dad to be at like maybe a baby shower or something. I just think the giraffes really add to that baby feel on the card. Now to finish it off, I'm going to add this heart on here. So I could not find my little scissors, so I'm using these big, huge scissors to cut out this little heart. And once I had it cut out, I did run a black pen around the edge just to kind of cover the white core of the cardstock. And then I added a little bit of foam adhesive to the back of this, and I just adhered it right over top of the giraffes, right in between the two. And then that is going to finish the card. I didn't want to have sequins. I just wanted it completely flat and let the watercolor giraffes stay the focus. So thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one.